Hello, and welcome to the Conspiracy Consultants. I'm Michelle, and alongside a fantastic guest host every episode, I take some of the weirdest and wildest conspiracy theories and unpick how someone would go about making them a reality. So I've actually known Ed since we were 16, and we did a drama school over the summer together. And he is one of the just loveliest, gentlest, kindest, most thoughtful people I know. I'm absolutely thrilled to still be in his orbit. Now, Ed has actually sent me a bio. An actor, producer, game designer, and game master, Edward has become an increasingly recognizable face within the tabletop gaming industry over the last year, on account of his award-winning work on autumnal miniseries Beyond the Brook, RP Geek's Orbital Blues, Black Star, Wounded Warrior Project's Shadows of Gotham, and the acclaimed imagined next chapter in Middle-earth's history, The Fourth Age. A dungeon master for D&D in a castle, Edward is also one of the co-creators and designers for 12-Sided Studios' Force of Extinction, as well as Warcradle Studios' miniature wargames, Armored Clash and Dystopian Wars. As a performer, he can be heard on My First Dungeons, Paint the Town Red, and in Ninja Theory's Senu's Saga, Hellblade 2. One thing before we get on with the show. Back in 2016, a study by Dr. David Robert Grimes suggested that a century-long deception could be carried out if fewer than 125 people knew about it. Now, I really enjoy doing this podcast, and I would love it to be the worst kept secret in all of Conspiracy Land. So while the main feed will always be free, if you enjoy this episode, I do have one ask of you. Please, tell your friends. Let's go make some conspiracy dreams come true, shall we? Tell me about a conspiracy theory you believe in.
So here's the thing. I'm very partial to conspiracy theories, and I think it's because I passively enjoy them, which is probably a very bad quality of mine, because if someone is like, oh yeah, no, I absolutely think this was an inside job, I'm like, yeah, I could believe it. And I don't really kind of like look beyond the face value of it that much.
Is that because it's fun?
I think it is. And I think it's also because so many conspiracies are rooted in historicity.
Yeah.
And I'm just not very good at taking in facts. Like my grasp on history is so bad. Fiction, fine. Facts, awful. And I feel like I enjoy conspiracies through vibes rather than proof. And I think so, all of which brings me to say that the only conspiracy that I'm utterly convinced of is that Trump's assassination attempt was entirely staged. And I know it's really not based on any like research I've done. It's not based on any, it is based on my fundamental hatred of the man. And I know that. I know that bias is there. But also, then you see videos of like, this is what a gunshot does to an ear and all this kind of stuff. And so I find myself like passively believing conspiracy theories quite a lot, I think.
Okay, so that's really interesting about the ear thing, because I have a relative who said the same thing, and you know which relative that is.
Yes,
yeah.
I do.
And it's funny because I remember waking up and Chris, the first words out of his mouth were, oh, fuck. Because he went, that image is going to win him the election. And that was a thing he was utterly
100%.
convinced by. And he was right. And that was before Joe Biden dropped out of the election. And I mean, what I found weirder is that everyone walked around with like a Band-Aid over their ear. What were they doing?
Yeah. Well, it was the commodification of that event in the same way, the red MAGA hats and all that kind of stuff. It was this bringing together of community in a very artificial way.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, you're right, like in terms of the staging of the image, which is an undeniably iconic image.
Really
like
is.
It yeah. But then all of this stuff, like people going, oh, if you were actually taking a photo from that angle, you wouldn't catch the American flag in there, and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is what I mean by I'm probably the worst kind of conspiracy theorist.
It's
because
vibes.
I'm like, yeah, well, no, 100%. I'm less taken in by sort of supernatural conspiracies and like aliens and things like that. Stuff like Area 51, I'm like, hey, yeah, maybe. But for me, it's like Princess Diana's death and all that kind of stuff.
That one you
I'm
get,
like,
yeah.
I could believe that. I could believe that. I think that's it. I could believe that. And I
Yeah.
think that's what it comes down to. I think I'm a conspiracy agnostic. I'm
Okay.
very much like, yeah, I'm open. I'm open to the idea. I'm open to the idea of a god. I'm open to the idea of aliens. I'm open to the idea of assassination attempts. I'm very much like, yeah, if facts come along that prove that, I'd believe that. And if they don't, I mean, honestly, I could go either way. I'm probably the worst guest to have on this because I truly flip flop so much. I'm a man of very few convictions. I think that's what I'm learning.
I think if I turned around and said to you, Ed, this is real, I think you would go, well, weirder things have happened. Like that's what I'd expect your
For sure. Honestly, even if you were to go, this conspiracy theory today is all about like how the royal family are all lizard people, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'll hear it out.
I'll bring you on for the lizard people episode. I haven't done it yet. I will.
I'd love
Yeah,
that.
let's do that. Are you ready to move on to the main episode?
I'm so ready. I've just poured myself a fresh glass of wine. I feel I'm in the right mindset.
Well, I have kept this secret from you. You know, we've known each other since we were 16, more than
It's been
half
a long
our
time.
life. So I was thinking about all of the times we, walked around London and talked about big ideas and stories. And obviously, you've made an entire career out of storytelling.
Yes, through make believe and through and hearsay.
And hearsay.
I don't want to and hearsay. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. No, it's all storytelling. It's all make believe with a vein of truth.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what conspiracy theories are, he says, asking the expert.
I'm really interested in the psychology behind the conspiracy theories. Like, I think it tells us about what we're afraid of and what the big bad is right now. That thing about our society that we can't quite put our finger on, but fills us with dread and anxiety. That's what I think conspiracy theories are. And that's why I find them really interesting, because I think there is always a grain of truth. There's always just enough doubt that you can fill space. And that's because we don't trust people to tell us the truth. So, with that in mind, and with the history of spinning little white lies to entertain thousands of people, I just wanted to tell you, Ed, and I wasn't sure if you were aware, but we actually live in a simulation.
Believe it. I had this thought quite a lot when I was younger, as a lot of like socially awkward kids who are obsessed with The Matrix and The Truman Show are. But why are we in a simulation?
Well, I was going to ask you, what do you know about the simulation theory?
Oh, I mean, I don't really. Oh my God, there's a presentation.
Yeah, I made you a deck.
Incredible. So truly, I don't. It's something that I think people entertain quite a lot. As a younger child, I definitely did on occasion. I remember watching The Truman Show. I was obsessed with it. I watched
it's
it
great.
on repeat for around a week. But then I think I realized that I couldn't possibly be the subject of a Truman-esque TV show. Was no paying audience in their right mind would watch a child walk around listening to the same song on repeat for an entire week, which is behavior I still exhibit now.
Same.
So I know relatively little about certainly the theory
Oh,
behind the simulation.
the theory does what it says on the tin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Amazing.
we live in a simulation. However, there are two
Okay.
types. Like, there's two kind of main cruxes to the theory. So the one that most people think of when we think of simulation theory is the famous game The Sims, where, to quench our anxiety and to fulfill otherwise unfulfilled dreams, we go into this video game and we do things like take out the trash for no obvious discernible reason. And the idea is that we are the Sims. That's the first one. Thoughts, instincts?
When I think simulation, I think very much Matrix. So, we are the ones inhabiting it. But in this is the suggestion that there is some higher being, power, and we are just these Sims.
Yes.
Enacting things by rote. Interesting. Existentially, that's horrifying and very Lovecraftian. It's also, I don't know, especially when you think about the way that we play, using The Sims as an example, there's a certain amount of escapism. But I think we've all fallen victim to this when things in The Sims are not going well because you have not used Rosebud.
Motherload,
but
Ed. Come on, child's play.
is it Motherload now?
Well, Motherload is
sorry.
the big one. Rosebud only gives you 1,000, or Kaching only gives you 1,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Motherload gives you 50,000, which The fact that I know this is a 33-year-old woman.
Look, you only know what you're programmed with, and that's fine. But obviously, everyone who has played The Sims at some point has put their Sims through some kind of suffering. Everyone has removed the ladder from the pool, and I feel like that could go a long way towards explaining gestures broadly at the world. Someone who is building, a world has tried putting together a model UN and all, and has sort of gone, actually, let's see what happens when we burn it all down a little bit. It makes life feel a bit more futile and a little bit more depressing, if I'm honest. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping the second simulation theory is a bit more optimistic, but I'm not so sure.
It is. And I will just say as well, this theory, there is like a little bit of optimism. So this theory culminates in humans are so advanced at this point that we as a species have evolved so much, we have recreated our own lives because we wanted to. So in theory, humans are still alive, and that's a good thing? Question mark?
Okay.
Maybe, depending on
Question mark?
depending on how mean they are feeling. But the second one is slightly different. Have you ever played the video game Assassin's Creed?
I love the video game Assassin's Creed. Brotherhood, all day, every day. I've truly not played that game since it came out, but I don't think the games have ever been bettered. But I think I can sense what you're laying down here. So is the idea that, again, Matrix style, we are inhabiting the simulation, but we are elsewhere?
Yeah, so we're real. We're
Okay.
real. I have seen The Matrix. It's one of the very few movies I have actually seen. It's a recurring theme. Everyone's like, Michelle, have you seen this really obscure Christmas movie? And I'm like, no, I haven't.
The Matrix is not an obscure
No,
Christmas movie, Shell.
no.
It's fundamental. Anyway, it's fine. I'm putting my film bro back in the box. I'm sorry.
But I have seen The Matrix. I just don't remember anything other than like the red pill or the blue pill, like,
Sure.
or like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
glitch. Like I remember the glitch, but mostly because that's a meme now. But with the Assassin's Creed one specifically, like they have something that's called an animus for those who don't play. And the premise is you have been recruited by this group of assassins to try to right the world because the Templars still exist. And you have to use your DNA to go back into your ancestors' history to find the answers to stop the Templars, right? That's the crux of the whole series. And in various games, there's different ways to get into it, but by and large, they like stick a needle in your arm and it supplies you with nutrients, I suspect, while you're in this other world. And that is basically what they are saying we're doing. So we're in a pod somewhere in suspended animation and living an alternate life that feels completely real but is entirely synthetic.
I think the thing I find very interesting is the first one robs us of any autonomy. The first one is essentially saying we're not real.
Yeah.
All of what we do is predetermined, and obviously there's this whole thing surrounding like free will and fate, which comes up a lot in religion. But I think the thing that I find very interesting about the second simulation theory is it presupposes that we are the only real person in the world that we are living in, or at least the world that we are experiencing now. So if this was your simulation, like you would be real. I wouldn't be.
No.
And I think that's very
Self-centered?
It is. I don't want to get too like old man on soapboxy about it, but we're at a stage in history where everything is becoming so hard to own. Like it's so hard to own a house. It's so hard to own a car. It's so hard to find a job. It is hard to have things that are ours. And I think something that's very interesting is we're seeing people latching onto things that are quote unquote theirs in a very extreme way. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent.
I like it.
But if you look at a lot of like fandoms, specifically around like IPs, whenever there are, Star Wars is a perfect example. But when you look at any kind of like fictional world or like comics or books or films or TV shows, whenever there are remakes and reboots, like people are so up in arms about the way those things are presented and the way those things are appropriated and the way those things are remade. And there is that real, no, this is mine. Like, I own this. And I think because it's so hard for us to anchor ourselves within the world in which we live through essentials, we are increasingly centering ourselves in our own existence through this space is mine and I need to keep it sacred. And I think the second simulation theory feels like a more modern one. The second one is much more, no, I am controlling this and everyone else around me doesn't exist, which I think is almost more depressing.
This reminded me, do you remember the play The Nether? It was on the Royal Court like 12 years ago, something like that.
The name rings a bell, but
Yeah.
I can't recall anything about it.
It's really stuck with me in a way I don't think I expected it to at the time. But you live kind of a second world. And what they discover is that one of those worlds that people are living in, and everyone is in the second state. So everyone is their own person, but they can change their appearance. And what it turns out is one of those worlds is a pedophile ring. And yeah, spoiler alert, skip 20 seconds. But effectively, what they find out at the end of the play is the little girl who's being abused in the show is actually like the body is a little girl, but the person behind the body is an old man. And all of the pedophiles take turns, basically, being the little girl. And there was like something that was so jarring about that kind of level of control. Because I guess the theory says that you're alone in the universe and everyone else is fake, which means in theory, none of your actions or behaviors matter. There's a futility to everything anyway. And I think what was so much more disturbing about the Nether than that was you all are somehow complicit in each other's darkest things and you're being validated by other people. So, because I don't think I'm articulating this idea very well, but I don't want friends who are just going to tell me everything I do is okay. I want friends who, when I'm out of line, are going to tell me, Michelle, what are you doing? Who's doing it in those situations? What's the thing challenging you?
This is a very real growing concern that I have with AI, where so I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a therapist, and she was saying that her patients attend therapy and they have regular sessions, but in between those sessions, some of them will go to ChatGPT to ask about their life and about their troubles. And like you say, a human can challenge you. A person can say, I don't think this is great. I think you made a mistake. AI won't do that. AI will parrot back to you what you need it to, because ultimately it's a tool and it is feeding on whatever you give it. There was a case recently where basically someone was goaded into taking their life
Yes.
by
Yeah.
AI. Because, for one, those technologies are not going to have the safety barriers in place to be able to deal with the nuance of human emotion.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's why the simulation theory is interesting. It's also why I think it's probably not true. Because if you are putting into the world your thoughts and your desires and all of this sort of stuff, I don't know, actually, like, I don't know, as someone who has struggled a great deal with depression and anxiety, I've certainly been met with a lot of things that have fueled that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm talking myself back around to the simulation theory.
You really are a conspiracy agnostic.
Yeah, I truly am. Yeah.
You truly, truly are. But I want to get into the next thing. So I'm going to just say, for the sake of this, we have created a simulation. I want to talk about the computing power that is required in this computer that we're in. And I'm not going to lie to you, Ed. I'm not going to really like latch onto this because I'm not very technical. Are you very technical?
I'm in the arts, shell, though.
Yeah.
I am not very technical.
I'm still recovering from a career in the arts. So yeah, not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not technical. Not technical at all. So I had neither the time nor the inclination to do any maths to realize what the answer of this problem would be. But I had a problem statement and I turned to my favorite website, Reddit. And I asked Reddit if anyone had ever asked the question of how much computing power would be necessary to simulate our entire universe. And thankfully, armchair expert with a U asked this question 14 years ago. So obviously this is, before AI became mainstream, but people were talking about it in the thread. Do you know the most powerful supercomputer in the world? Do you know its name? It came out last year. It cost $600 million.
I don't.
It's
No.
called El Capitan.
I had not heard of that.
No.
No. Okay.
It's in California, and it looks after basically the US nuclear. Pretty
Okay.
big deal. It got commissioned in 2018.
Okay.
It was released last year. It is enormous. It's literally like rooms and rooms full of servers.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a flop or a flops, I should say? So not to be confused with, like a bad TV show.
No, I've not heard of a flops.
I'm going to tell you what it stands for. And don't ask me
Okay.
to explain it because I don't know how to. I was like, okay, where's the quantum computing for dummies? Wikipedia. Great. That's the equivalent. So flops stands for floating point operations per second, which is the way they measure computing power.
Flops.
El Capitan operates at a performance level of 1,742 petaflops. Yes. A petaflop is more than a flop, but I don't know by what times. Because when I looked, I saw like megaplops and gigaplops. No, gigaflops. And they were all in an order, and I didn't see just bang all average flops. So I feel like we've surpassed the flops, and now we're at petaflops.
Okay.
Okay.
Petaflops.
Petaflops.
Okay.
So this is a computer that is stopping us all from literally vanishing off the face of the earth, or our simulation, depending on how you look at it. Now, I did check one thing. Well, what does that equal? Like, how many zeros? How many zeros does this mean? A user called Zombie Wumble decided to break down what they thought the answer would be. So Zombie Wumble opened their response with, the main problem with the simulation is the question of how accurate you want your universe to be. That's the main problem here.
So it's the difference between having a basically cohesive world as opposed to the simulation in that one episode of Rick and Morty, where it's basically running at like zero capacity.
Yeah, the frame rate per second has to be more than 30.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Zombie Wumble, they outline a bunch of numbers. And then he goes, of course, there's the fact that all the numbers I outlined above are for a single smallest scale time step. That would mean simulating one non-quantum mechanical second would take about 30,000 years.
To render or... Okay.
And then goes on to say how much computing power we would need to simulate the universe.
So I'm interested with all of these hypotheticals or realities. I don't want to discount any simulation believers out there, but is the idea that it is simulating everything all at once?
Everything.
Right. And I don't want to critique the simulation because God knows we're all living in it, but I feel like, especially if it's just for one person, and you are the only one existing in that simulation, I'm thinking video game logic. Like, surely you just have a bubble that is slowly loading assets as you are approaching them. And if you're on a train, it's not generating everything around you. It's basically like long-form quick travel. So I don't know if we necessarily need that much power. Certainly
we want the whole universe.
Petaflop. All at once.
We want the whole universe.
Cool.
We want to all have individual kind of experiences as if we're living a unique existence.
Okay.
This is the premium.
Cool. So, I mean, you got to have a premium simulation. So the idea is that this particular example is we're all existing in a shared simulation?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're real and I'm real, but none of us are actually real. But you think you're real and I think I'm real. Zombie Wumble concludes with, if you want to simulate the universe, the easiest way is probably just to build a universe.
So it would make more sense to just build an actual universe that people could live in rather than simulate a universe that people were living
in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So
lovely.
That's what this guy is saying. Now, I think we build a universe.
I mean, anything's got to be better than this one, right?
And I'm just going to leave you with a quote from this thread from Die, You Bastards. Would you like to read that quote out?
Wouldn't this be a paradox, since such a computer would have to simulate itself? 29 upvotes. It's got a point.
29 people agree. One of them could be him.
And 28 of them could be a computer. I mean, it's true. And I feel this is a way in which a lot of conspiracies proliferate as well, because there is always that the moment there is that presentation of, oh, but surely that's what they want you to think. There is then the doubling down of the no, but that's what they want you to think. They want you to think, and it is a sinkhole.
It is.
Yeah,
massive sinkhole. Are you ready for actually what I wanted to talk to you about today?
Absolutely.
So we need to come up with some storylines. I told you about the game I was playing recently called Kingdom Come Deliverance. I was playing the second one.
Yes.
They posted a picture of the script of the first game, and I mean, honestly, it took up an entire table. It was stacked about 5 feet tall. How do you approach that on this scale? Because everyone's living multiple storylines.
I can say this from experience because I've done some storylining for video games, and even when it's just like a simple binary multiple choice, that gets real complicated real fast.
Tell me more.
So in this particular example, you are a captain aboard a ship, and at each stage, you're woken up from cryogenic sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And you are thrust into the middle of this diplomatic mission. And you are being asked, we have survivors from a crash. Do we let them on board? Yes or no? Do we give our supplies to them if you've chosen yes? Yes or no? Okay, they're going to start to revolt. What do we do? Yes or no? Do we succumb to this? Yes or no? And obviously, you know, ultimately with any form of video game, to a certain extent, you want to branch out, but you also want to taper back in, and you want to come to certain preordained endpoints because it can't go on spreading out indefinitely. But when you start from that first page of script, and then you go, okay, option B, option A, those are two separate pieces of paper now, and each of those present their own A and B, and they continue out. And it's kind of like cells multiplying. In my current job in game design, we refer to it very much as stacking and collapsing cups. Okay. So you stack them up, creating basically as broad a reach as you possibly can. You're presenting yourselves with as many options as you possibly can, but at a certain point, you need to start narrowing that down. And so you collapse the cups in on one another until you have 1, 2, 3 stacks of separate cups. And so doing that for like a half-hour game, I mean, hard work, but, you know, manageable. But doing that for a lifetime.
So how many people do we need per human or per plot?
Oh my God. Well, we had 2 for 1 person. So I would say for at least every character in the storyline, we're probably going to need at least 2. I mean, obviously there'll be a bit of crossover, like the storylines that you're working on, the storylines that I'm working on. I'm sure that we can link up and probably cross those over a little bit. I'm going to assume we have a limitless budget.
100%.
So let's say 10 people per 1 person.
Wow, okay, and that's for a whole lifetime. And what does that cover?
Now,
how granular are we going?
Well, now I'm thinking, do they have their own storyline people as well? How far does this rabbit hole go? I would say you probably want people who are very good at writing storylines for kids. So you'll want them for like the first 5 years. And then you'll probably want some intermediary consultants as you move into the run up to the double-digit ages. So you probably want another team of 10 coming in. So I would say you probably want different 10 people every 5 years. You might have a little bit of crossover to ensure continuity and to make sure there's sort of tonal cohesion between all of the chapters. But over an entire lifetime, let's say 20 for every 10 years. So let's say on average 180 people working on a storyline.
I'm going to just ask a question on that. So given the scale of what we're working at, are we saying that those people, are they responsible for every single thing we do, or are we living autonomously? So like when we play The Sims, we can go, look, brush your own teeth, wash your own hands after you use the loo. Or are they literally having to do that as well?
I think there are certain pre-programmed behaviors. So I think going to the toilet, going to sleep. I think rather than writing the essentials, I think those are programmed in,
Right.
but I think you're writing the exception. So,
Fine.
oh, on this night, we've decided that Michelle is going to stay up all through the night to finish that project
Right.
that she
Okay.
was working on. Okay, so we're going to override the programming for that night, and the next day we'll show the effect somehow. We'll show it through tiredness or, you know.
Now, next question I want to ask you, because we're working on this kind of scale, do you believe in the idea that there are only a set number of personality types? Everyone tries to categorize it, right? Like Myers-Briggs tries to do it. You have like the 7 main characters, you have different attachment styles. Do we think that there is like a set number of categories people can fall into? Hell, horoscopes do it.
So I'm going to draw on my own role-playing
Okay.
experience here. You have your base like 7 personalities.
Mhm.
Let's go with that. That is your starting point. And then you choose an origin.
Uh-huh.
So you might go, this is where this person is from. This is sort of what their family is like and all that kind of stuff. And obviously that's going to influence a lot. And then you choose basically like maybe 3 or 4 like sub
Mhm.
categories, I guess. Basically, you're specializing
Okay.
that one archetype. So you've chosen one of the 7 archetypes, and then within that, you're going to go, maybe
Right.
I'll make them capital R romantic, but maybe I'll make them a little bit cynical. And maybe you pepper those things in. And I think, like, obviously, you know, if you feel that storyline isn't working in like 20 years or you're kind of bored of writing about that, then I think you're well within your rights to potentially change that or lean harder into that.
All right. So then I wonder, could we have a team of people whose entire job it is to just write storylines and they just leave them? And there's like built-in points where you kind of go, age 21, crisis. And you like basically you roll a dice and that dice gives you the answer of what is the thing that's going to happen.
If we sort of view this as a similar in structure to a TV series, you want a showrunner over the course of this one storyline where we're following this person on a very personal level. We'll be wanting larger things to happen in the background. So let's, I don't know, arbitrarily say that in this one country every 4 years there's, I don't know, an election,
Oh,
and that will change things.
okay.
That'll change the
Yeah,
world stage. And obviously, I would say of the 10-person teams that we have writing, we're probably having one of those people designated as checking in with those larger storylines and coming back and going, okay, so this is a stupid idea, but they've decided there's going to be this big vote about whether this country is going to stay in this larger block, and we should probably decide on where our storyline is going to go in
yeah.
relation to that. Are they going to vote yes or no? And I think the dice thing you mentioned is interesting because that frees up the storytelling aspect to a certain degree, because you can leave certain things to chance if you would like to.
How do you monitor something to judge whether or not something's working and you have to throw something in to just change it up spur of the moment? There's got to be a change of management occasionally, a change of direction. So how would you navigate that when you're, developing a game or a story? You read the room, you're running a D&D game and people aren't vibing in the way you hope. What do you do?
It's that classic example. You want to give pre-existing IPs to people who don't really care about those IPs because they're fundamentally going to find the more interesting things in it. So I think the shifting teams will probably help with that. And I think, you know, invariably you will probably have some people who get very comfortable writing the same storyline again and again. Like, we're earning our paycheck here.
Yeah.
And those storylines will probably remain in stasis for a while. And maybe at some point a new writing team will come in and go, come on, we need a change in this career. We need a change in this relationship.
So essentially we're relying on basically creating like the ultimate writer's room.
Essentially.
Yeah.
But then I think what's interesting is in this example, we are creating a community around isolation.
That's deep. Is there anything else in terms of storylining that you'd like to flag?
I mean, you want an end goal
Okay.
as well. The subjects of these storylines are going to be growing over time, so too will the writer's room. The interns will eventually become the old stalwarts who will eventually want to move on to other bigger projects. People will come in with ideas for new storylines, and they will probably want to create another main character for this world and invariably position them in a position of power or
Yeah.
of influence or of celebrity or yeah.
Do you ever find that you get more attached to some characters than others? When I had nothing else to do except play The Sims. There are some that for no obvious reason I hated and some I loved. You're laughing at me, but it's true.
No. It absolutely is. I think you would grow very fond of particular sort of simulated figures than you would others, and that would lead to preferential treatment, and you would probably go, well, their dream is to do this thing. Even though it doesn't quite make sense for that to happen, I'm going to do that. Maybe in this simulation that explains celebrity, that explains success. These remarkable individuals who are in the limelight.
Mm. And then they get taken down.
Because there is nothing more narratively interesting than falling after success.
Yeah. And then building up again.
Mm.
Okay, so that's kind of the idea of storylining. I'm going to go to the next stage. And I want to talk about how do you create complex characters? You know, everyone has their individual likes and dislikes. They have hopes and dreams, hobbies. They contain multitudes. So you're starting from the beginning. We need to create a set of characters. Where would you start?
I think this is the nice thing. When you're starting from the beginning of a character, they are essentially a blank slate. And you have room to get things wrong as well. Ultimately, when you're starting out with a new character, a baby, you are essentially able to observe the behaviors of the people around them. And you're able to go, okay, I like that. So we're going to attach you to these two people's storyline, and they are going to be the people who are looking after your character. So feel free to consult them on anything that you need to, and, you know, have dialogue between your respective teams. I suspect going into it, you might go, okay, we're going to choose one of these 7 personality types. We might change our mind, but we're just going to observe for now.
When you're creating a character for one of your games, or, you know, you're running a story, you're introducing someone, what would be the first thing you look at?
I mean, it's very masturbatory to say, but it would be themes. It would be, what are the themes of the story?
Okay.
And so if it's a very oppressive world, to do with the grinding down of the human spirit, to do with the overtaking of capitalism, to do with the commodification of things, you would probably want to create a character that either leans into that or stands in opposition of that.
Okay, so like the very first thing is, are they a leader or a follower? Are they somebody who makes change or who observes change?
Yeah, that feels very apt. Depending on what your starting point is, that is the beginning of an arc as well. All storylines come in arcs, and generally, if I was creating a character, I would have the end of that arc in mind. And obviously that would be subject to change because I am going to be surrounded by other people who are making decisions. And obviously there's a degree of chance in what I'm doing as well.
Yeah.
So I will have that end goal in mind as a thematic endpoint, but not a narrative endpoint.
Okay, so when you're doing it, do you have the ending in mind? Because when I was writing plays, I always knew the beginning and I always knew the middle, and I never, ever, ever could get the ending right. When you're writing theater, one of the first questions are, why are these people in a room together? You know, it's a bit easier when it's a big open world thing, when it's like, well, you just kind of happened to cross them, no big deal. We all go to school, right? Duh. But when you're in a play, and particularly, you know, I was working on the Fringe, you have generally a black box that generally you don't have enough money to like paint, much less get any meaningful props or sets. So when you're looking at that, you go, okay, well, why are they here? Because they could walk out. I could walk out. How are you stopping me from walking out?
I think it's interesting because, especially in a work of fiction, even if it's based on fact, you're coming into it at, like, why is the vertical slice of life you're choosing that moment? And it's because it's the most dramatic. It's because it's the most eventful. And you know, when you were asking me about the work that I do, frequently I'm not creating characters. More often than not, I am facilitating the journey of other people's characters.
Okay.
Which is a very, for me, it's a very different thing. Using D&D as an example, like you have the dungeon master and you have the players, and it is the dungeon master's story, and the players are kind of playing it out. I don't subscribe to that at all, because for me, the story is the players. They are the story. What I provide is plot. And I think plot
Okay.
is a very different thing.
Tell me.
So I think plot is the inciting incidents along the way,
Okay.
and the story is what comes from those inciting incidents. So for me, I am providing a rib cage around the lungs of the story that the players are breathing life into. I provide the parameters,
Okay.
I provide the rules, I provide the boundaries, but in terms of what they choose to do within it, it's not my place to dictate that. One of the things I find endlessly compelling about roleplay is I am aware of the beginning. I can't control the middle, and I'm guiding us towards an end.
Okay.
But that end is not predetermined. Like,
Okay.
I might have a thematic idea of where we need to end, but I don't know how we'll get there, and I don't know in what state we'll arrive there.
Right.
And that
Okay.
feels very exciting. It's basically like you are writing your favorite TV show in a writer's room,
Yeah.
but your writers are also your actors.
I really like the idea of that kind of a human journey. Two things that are guaranteed. If we are all alive, we have been birthed and we will one day no longer exist. So, what we're saying is essentially you're just trying to meet your characters every day.
And whenever I approach a new project or a new story, I will always provide my players with questions.
Yes.
And there'll be a number of things like, what is your name? What does your character look like? Does your character have any family? All this sort of stuff. But I will always end it in the same way. What is one place you never want to go again? What is the one thing that would make you happiest in this world? And what is one secret that you want to keep from every other member of the group? And I think if we're going back to our complex characters and our simulation, you want to give the people at least those ideas, and those ideas might change. What would make you the happiest in this moment, and what is the one thing you fear? When you're younger, it might be it's asking out that guy I really like and him saying yes. Like that is a thing that would make me happiest.
Yeah.
The fear is saying no. And then later on in life, and I'm not drawing from personal experience, but you might go, the thing that would make me happiest in life would be to act. And then at a certain point, that changes, and you realize actually that isn't the thing that makes me happiest anymore. It's this other thing.
Yeah.
And so I think even with that predetermined end of death,
Of
I think
death.
there's nuance within of death. I think there is that nuance and that malleability to be able to shift the goalposts for our simulated characters.
When you asked the question of like, where's a place you never want to go back to? It's like saying the same thing of like, what are you afraid of? But what are you afraid of puts you in your head. Whereas the question, where do you never want to go back to, puts you back in your body. It's like your body freezes up.
Yeah. Like I can pinpoint various points in my life where I'm like, ooh, even if the place is an emotional one, I don't want to be there ever again.
Yeah.
It is easier to deal with a feeling once it is talked about, because at that point it is physicalized. It becomes a tangible thing that you can deal with. Whereas if you let it fester and you don't express it, it's ephemeral. It's a thing that you can't grasp. It's like smoke. It's just inside you.
I'm interested in what you think makes people complex and like how you would layer a character as well. Is it a sliding scale that like changes in layers every day as you have things that set out to challenge it? Or is there something else?
I mean, now we're getting into basically nature nurture, but fabricated nature
Yeah.
nurture,
Yes.
which is a very existential layer to put onto that already very essential question. Maybe it is just as simple as at the end of a day, because change is gradual, it's so seldom immediate. You have an infinite number of pips next to various emotional states. So the writers huddle together and they go, well, today they were shouted at. And that is probably like, what do we think as a writer's room? Like, do we think it's more narratively interesting for this character to push back about that or to shrink in the face of that? Okay, we all think shrink. Okay, so we'll probably like minus a few pips in like self-actualization or self-esteem, and we'll probably up the same amount of pips in anxiety. And maybe it is literally that granular, so that as you are moving through this, you have like a vague idea as to like the end point that you want, but you are constantly essentially leveling them up
Mhm.
throughout the course of their life.
I like that. So we've created ourselves a complex character. So we've figured out what storylining looks like. We have created at least one central complex character. The last thing I want to talk about is, have you ever heard of something called Dunbar's number?
What? No.
You have definitely heard about it, but just not known the name because that's how I felt about it too. Robin Dunbar is a British anthropologist who in the 1990s basically said the number of people that we are able to maintain a relationship with is 150. Yes.
Yes, I
Uh-huh.
have heard this.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And I'm not going to lie, I didn't read the full paper because I picked this episode topic 36 hours ago and I still had to do 2 full days
Incredible.
of work. So this was how I spent last night. He has gone and measured non-human primates' brains, so gorillas, and related them to the size of the society that they were able to live in and at what point things start to go wrong. And he is pretty convinced, linking that evidence and mapping it onto like British villages and companies and churches and other tight community groups. Obviously, there's scope, like 150 is the mean, but it could go between 100 and 200 roughly. Obviously, people who are extroverted probably tend towards that 200, and people who are introverted probably tend towards that kind of 100 mark. So the idea, kind of at its crux, is that according to the theory, your tightest circle is 5 people, your loved ones, the closest people to you in the entire world. Then you go into like 15, which is like the layer of good friends, and then 50 people who are like your friends, like people you would happily go and catch up with if they offered. 150 people, which are meaningful contact. The way the BBC put it is like people that you would see at a pub and be happy to have a drink with. 500 acquaintances, and up to 1,500 people that you recognize vaguely. Like, you pass the same dude on the street 3 times a week. It really made me think of NPCs in video games.
Yeah. I mean, if you only needed 1,500
Mhm.
unique faces, that feels like it's not that much to generate,
Right?
really.
And also, can you, for that group of 1,500 people, can you not all fit all of those categories for each other?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But also, so with those sort of close friends, I'd be tempted to localize it. These are the people that you know in this city, and that is what this cast of characters is going to do. And then everyone else is an NPC.
So, for those who don't play video games, NPCs are non-playable characters, which is basically anyone who isn't you. I think these NPCs could be people like on the phone at HMRC who are answering our tax queries, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. People that we never see.
No.
Honestly, like probably a lot of public figures as well. People who are essentially setting in motion the larger storylines that are happening in the background, but you're unlikely to have a meaningful relationship with.
Yes.
That could be like easily a pre-recorded thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things where nobody was in the corner, so nobody knows they didn't exist 30 seconds before. They turn a corner, they say thank you, they move on, your back is turned, they vanish. Nobody notices.
All NPCs could be directional, as in like they're only ever going to be in your field of vision. I'm essentially using baby logic here, but the moment they are out of sight, like they don't exist.
Let's say a team of 50 is responsible for 1,500 people. Of those, let's say 1,000 of them are NPCs, and the others are complex characters that are started from a singular point and move more broadly outwards. Unless you are restricting them to their area, which would only really work in rural locations where they don't have like regular access to trains, vehicles, planes, boats, etc. In a modern age, we have to account for the stability of the locations. Globally, they all have to be rendering at all times.
I think the thing that is interesting about this simulation idea, especially if we are working on the presupposition that it is human made, the population surrounding the maintenance of this simulation would have to be so much more than those living within it.
Are we thinking about the same thing? Are we both thinking about the Truman Show?
Oh, 100%. It's all I've been thinking about.
Because
But yeah, no, 100%.
I think that is a really good indicator of the work that goes into maintaining just one lie. How do you sustain disbelief?
And I think with this, you could view it either way. You could say that this is an incredibly beautiful and utopian idea because the amount of work that other people are doing to ensure your life is an inherently beautiful thing. But on the flip side of that, the amount of work that it is taking to create a veneer of something that is real, that is, and I think, again, this is bringing us back to our AI chat earlier. I think especially when it comes to AI, and I use this with the heaviest quotation marks, but AI art, it is being used to create a facsimile of something that already exists.
Yeah.
And cannot be bettered because it is flawed and because it is imperfect. And I think with this simulation theory, the idea that that amount of work is being put into something that already exists, and for what? For a greater degree of control, but for who? Not for the subject, because we, the subjects, are unaware that we are in a simulation. So it's not for us.
No.
It's for someone else. And even if that experience is being curated for us, it's not really being curated for us. It's being curated for the entertainment or the curiosity of someone else. And that is a scary prospect. And again, I think that takes us back to a very basic idea that I think we've probably had since religion began, is how small are we in comparison to a god? You know, it's the whole reason why we came up with myths to explain volcanoes and earthquakes and weather.
We solved weather. Democrats control the weather.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
What Dunbar's number made me think about was the number of times I've gone, I don't need more friends. I have enough friends. So you have to excavate room for new things, new experiences, new people. Like, if this is true, then that is a psychological phenomenon that explains bandwidth the way that we talk about it now, and it explains fatigue. Like, people go take a nap. It's like, well, the nap is not going to solve my problem that I don't have enough hours in the day.
Again, I think that speaks to that longing for control. I think we desire control because there's so much less of it. Obviously, as with all things, it comes in cycles. You look back to, you know, the Great Depression or the Second World War, you know, there was a loss of control and there was an inability to own your life in a very specific way. They say there's like a 50-year cycle where we forget the things generationally that we've learned.
Yeah.
I think there's a big reason why we're repeating a lot of the same mistakes that have been made, you know, 50 or more years ago. I think, again, it speaks to that. Like, a lot of people are just tired now. The idea of someone curating a lived-in experience for them probably feels quite welcome. If something bad happens to me, I can just accept it. It's part of the simulation. This was always meant to happen. I think, you know, we're always looking for a deeper meaning in something. People are turning towards AI more and more as like, it's that shortcut to an easier life. It's like a cheat code. You know,
I have a follow-up question to that. You get to ask for one cheat code in your life. What's that cheat code?
oh God. Oh, that's awful. Anything that redistributes wealth, I guess. Looking at the inequity and the inequality that exists around the world, we need to do better. Can I have a cheat code that allows me to sort of like shortcut a lot of this?
Upskill charisma, upskill leadership. You're
Yeah.
extremely charismatic and an extremely good leader. So I don't think either of those apply to you. But if you had like Obama level of charisma, then
Oh, I'd be flying.
right?
But yeah, I would want to redistribute. Well, I think I would go, everyone gets the same amount. That's my cheat code.
Okay.
Like, and that would bring its own problems, I am sure. But I think the problems would be less morally degrading than they are now.
You're telling me Ed introduces a cheat code for communism.
I think so, yes. Edward.communism. That would be the cheat code.
I was going so much more granular than that.
What was yours going to be?
I'll go light. I want a cheat code that means Chris has to tell me I'm right all the time.
Yeah, very good.
Do you have any kind of final thoughts on anything we've talked about today?
My only final question is really kind of, where do we sit on the simulation? I think it speaks to a much more hopeless view of the world. The more I contemplate it, the more existentially fraught I can feel myself becoming.
I'm sorry. That wasn't the intention.
No, it's so good. I think, like, what is so bad about the world that I live in, that not only do I want to escape from that, but I want to live through this. Which is not to say that I have a bad life, because I do not.
No, of course not.
But
the
there
world
is
is hard.
there is suffering here,
Yeah.
and there is love. But if that is all I am experiencing here, the heights of that happiness and the depths of that sadness, what am I experiencing outside of that I am looking to escape, where this would be favorable? And call it seasonal depression. But it makes me quite sad for that hypothetical version of me.
If we're going to the second scenario of the simulation theory and to the animus, I mean, you've played Assassin's Creed. Not everything in those, inside or outside, are very good. But when you're in that game, you know you're serving a higher purpose, and that makes it a really enjoyable game.
What is your view?
So I said at the beginning that I think what is so interesting about conspiracies is it reveals to us the thing we're too afraid to face in daylight. And I think simulation theory tells me that we are afraid that our life is for nothing. The defining feature of this conspiracy theory is that people are fucking lonely and tired. And isn't that actually quite a unifying experience? That was always going to get quite existential, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm going to be looking around, looking for the NPCs. This might be off topic, but I'm interested because conspiracy theories, and I'm sure when you look back through history, they've always kind of existed.
Yeah.
But I feel a lot of conspiracy theories are centered in or around the US. Would I be incorrect in that?
I think there are other conspiracies in other languages that we don't speak, therefore we're not exposed to. I also think a lot of conspiracy theories that I've looked into are tied to like religious fundamentalism, and you know where there's a lot of that.
I guess like most of the conspiracies that I've heard of kind of relate to a lot of like governmental things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess you're right. I suppose it's interesting, like the conspiracy theories that linger in the public consciousness are the ones that pertain to us, I guess, more immediately. Whereas, you know, we can look back, and I guess we don't really look at those as conspiracy theories because we're like, oh, well, those were just rumors of the time.
Exactly.
Whereas actually,
what is a conspiracy theory but a really advanced rumor? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the thing that differentiates in my mind a rumor from a conspiracy is a rumor is just a piece of gossip, right? A conspiracy theory has an intent to deceive and an intent to hide something. But definitely with hindsight, where we have not all, but a lot of the records, we have the hindsight bias and we see how things turned out, we can go, well, that was stupid.
You blew my own conspiracy theory out the water. I was going to posit the notion that America as it exists today is considered relatively young, and there is that real kind of like looking for meaning in very recent history and things like that. This has been a fascinating, if somewhat existentially challenging
Next time
episode.
I'll do the lizard people with you, and that is, I promise you, less existential.
Obviously, don't want to spoil things before then, but how wide do these lizard people spread?
If you ask some people, they live in Buckingham Palace.
Hell yeah, what a hook.
Thanks for listening to The Conspiracy Consultants. This podcast is researched, hosted, and produced by me, Michelle Barnette, with scripting support by Anna Ryder. It was created and developed by Chris Harding for Whale Song Media. Music for the podcast was done by Nicole Johnson. Our artwork was designed by Luke Galloway for Space Face Films. And our marketing was done by Jamie McCrae. Special thanks to Andy Josephs.